Hello, Javad is here. In this video, we are going to learn all of the essentials and beginner tools that you need to get started with Enscape to create real-time rendering and animations for your Revit or ArchiCAD or SketchUp or Rhino or Vectorworks projects. We'll talk about all of the essential tools like rendering, VR, animations, asset library, and Enscape materials in this video. So let's go and learn it. The first step to use this software is to install it. You can install Enscape by going to enscape3d.com. You can get a free tutorial to know Enscape better, and if you decided to work with Enscape, you can buy it from here. And also we are going to work with a sample file that you can download from here. If you are a Revit user or a SketchUp user or ArchiCAD user or Vectorworks, you can download your sample files. You need to go to the resources part, and in here go to the sample projects and download the appropriate file according to your modeling software. For example, in here we have Revit files. We are going to use this file, but if you are ArchiCAD user or Vectorworks user, you can use other files that you can find in here. It's not really there is no really big difference, and you can follow along. Okay, that's great. And now let's go to the Enscape and start our Enscape project. This is a project that we are going to use for today. And to start your Enscape project or start the Enscape program, you need to go to the Enscape part of your program and then click on start and wait a little bit. This is the first scene of Enscape scene that we have. It's not that great. To navigate your Enscape, you can look around with left click and holding down left click. And to walk, you need to use WASD key on your keyboard, and you can walk, but it is flying and walking right now. But the speed is really slow because this area is big, so I need to hold on the shift and use the WASD again. But because this area is too big, you can understand that too. So you need to hold shift and control together and use WASD for this area which is big. But when you are in smaller places, you can use a small VOG and you can use shift with more speed for walking. If this speed is not that great for you, you can go to the general settings in here, and in here you can go to the input, and for the movement speed you can change the movement speed to a higher number, for example something like this. And now with just using WASD I will have more speed, or you can use shift and WASD for walking. But right now I'm in fly mode, which is you can go through the windows and walls, and this is kind of a flying. But if you want to walk like a person, you just need to press the space once, and then you will switch to walk mode. And right now you can't go through the walls and it has occlusion. You need to go through the doors and stairs and other parts. If you want to return to the fly mode, just press the space again. Now I'm in fly mode. I can use any direction with the left click and just look around. And also if you want to be, for example, in here, and I want to increase the height of my camera or the person that we have, you just need to press E. It will go up. You can do the exact thing with shift with a higher speed, shift and E. And I can do the opposite with shift Q or Q alone. But it just works in fly mode. It doesn't work in the walk mode. So you just can use that in fly mode. If you want to know which mode you are in right now, for example, you want to know if we are in fly mode or walk mode, you can see that in here. Right now we are in walk mode, so we can see this icon in here. When you click on it, you will see you can change the mode in here too. Let's put it on fly mode, and now we are in fly mode in our project. And also there are some other options for Enscape navigation too. If you want to teleport to somewhere fast, you just need to double click there and it will go there, and then you can change your angle to have better and optimized angle. Or if you want to rotate around something and you don't want to move around it, you want to rotate around it, just press the right click on your mouse and now you can rotate around something, and that's the way you can navigate in Enscape. And also if you want to see a mini map on top of your Enscape file, just press M, and now you can see a minimap. You can make it bigger, and when you go to in your buildings, let's press Shift and Q and WASD, you will see a map of your building too. You can teleport by just clicking on it too. For example, in here you can teleport it, and this is really helpful sometimes when you are presenting your work to your clients. Also in Enscape, you can change the time of the day just by pressing Shift and right click and drag it. For example, press Shift, hold Shift and press the right click and just drag it to right or left, and you can see the time of the day in bottom right of the screen, and you can change it. And when you bring your scene to the night time, it will turn on the artificial lights. You can see the artificial lights right now, and that's the way you can change and you can switch between day and night in Enscape, and it is really great. The next part that I want to cover is visual setting. For example, you are seeing the scene with some default settings, but you can want to change some of the settings. We've talked about the time of the day, but maybe you want to change the sun, or you want to change the sky, or anything like that. To do that, you need to click on in here in Enscape environment, click on visual setting. Also, I need to tell you that some of the settings that you are seeing in Enscape UI, you can find them in here, and even some of them are not even exist in Enscape UI. For example, when you go to the general setting in here, you would see some different settings in comparison with the general settings of here. For example, you can turn off or turn on the NVIDIA DLSS or ray tracing, and you can do some work for licensing, and some of the other works you can do them in here. Or for example, for placing sound and videos, we can do that in Enscape environments. Now this is the time to work with visual setting. To do that, click on visual setting in here, and you can see some settings in here. I don't want any preset like right now. We will talk about the presets in future, but right now in here you can see some settings with different tabs. The first one is your style. For example, we don't have any style right now. Let me turn off the minimap to focus on the main work that we have in here. We can change the style to white mode, and it is really great mode when you need to wait a little bit. This is really helpful when you are just showing the design to your client, or you want to see the light effects on your project. For example, let's go to the interior side, and now let's make the time of the day to night, and now you can see your lighting much better, and you can see each light effect in better way without any distraction of materials. Also, as I said, you can use it for presenting. White mode or polystyle mode is not really that different. You just can change the transmission of the materials in here, but we have another useful part, and that is light view. If you would specify the light voltage and light settings in a right way, you will get some great light view analysis in here. Not that exact, but it can help in some cases. Let's put it on none, and let's go back to the same. Oh, and now we have another setting in outline. When you increase the outline, it will bring a line in edges, but it's not that usable in some areas. For example, in non-filter mode, but in white mode it can be helpful. For example, you bring it on white, and when you assign a little bit of outline, it will be a little bit better to work. And also for the non-mode, usually I will put it on a really low number. It will make your scene pop up more. The next parameter that we have is here projection. For example, now we are seeing our project in 3-point perspective or perspective, and that's the mode you can use for moving around and working around. But if you want to render and you want the final scene to have a better effect than human eye effect, you need to change the projection on 2-point perspective, and it will make the lines vertical, not like when I put them on perspective. These are you can see the difference. And if you want to have an effect like a human eye, you need to put it on 2-point perspective. It will give you a human eye effect. If you are lost like me right now, just press 2 on your numpad. You will go to the front view and can find your project much faster. Let's go here and let's change the projection to orthographic. You can see the projection orthographic. You need to zoom, and now you will have a bird eye view, and you can do some renderings with this kind of settings. Let's put it on perspective to work better. It is much easier to work in perspective and render in 2-point perspective. The next parameter that we have is auto exposure. When you have auto exposure, for example, when you see this corner right now, it will be different when you zoom in, because it will adjust the exposure of each scene for you automatically. But when you turn off the auto exposure, you can see when you see this corner in here, but when you zoom it, it will not be different. It depends on your need, but for beginners and intermediate users, it is better to use auto exposure because it is hard to achieve the exact lighting. So let's turn on the auto exposure, but you can change the overall exposure with this slider that we have. For example, we can make the scene darker or brighter, or you can just restart it to the default number that we had. The next parameter that we have is field of view. That is kind of a zoom in your camera. You can use different lenses for your scene. For example, you can decrease it, and now you're using a wider lens, and when you decrease it, you're using a close-up lens. It will be useful to create some close-up or wide image for your render. But be careful to just don't decrease it too much or don't increase it too much, because it will deform your shape. Okay, now let's restart that to the same thing, and now let's go to the interior side. Let's go in here and let's create a close-up to this for this pot that we have. You need to decrease the field of view, and then we have depth of field. You can combine field of view with depth of field to create great close-up. Let's increase the depth of field. You can see we have a blurriness in here. We have a blurry background, but the autofocus is not working that great. So let's turn it off, and now we can specify the distance of focal point. We need to increase it a little bit. And now you can see this distance is in focus, and the other parts are out of focus. Or you can put it on autofocus, but it doesn't work that great for Enscape when you have some multiple objects. So let's put it on manual focus, and you can change the depth of field and can work with that. You can change it with numbers too. Okay, now let's turn off the depth of the field, and let's put the field of view on a normal number. And the next one is rendering quality. For example, if you have a really populated scene, you need to better to put it on draft, because it doesn't calculate any complex shadows or materials, and it will make your work much faster. Personally, I don't use medium, but you can use it too. But when you want to create your final renderings, you can put it on high or ultra. You can see when we put it on ultra, we have much better shadows and much better light calculation. Now let's talk about the next step that we have in here. In the image part, you have some settings to change the way the image look. For example, you can put it on auto contrast. It will change the auto contrast. It will change the contrast automatically. But if you want to make highlights more lighter, for example, you can see the highlights in here. Or you want to make them dimmer, you can change that with that, or you can restart, or you can change the shadow. It will have more effect on your scene. For example, you can see the difference between having harsh shadows and brighter shadows, or darker shadows, or brighter shadows. You can restart that too. You can change the saturation in here. You can create a monochrome, or you can create cooler vibes with lower saturation. And also you can change the color temperature. For example, you can change the color temperature according to your sky, according to your scene. You can make it warmer, or you can make it cooler. For example, personally, I like cooler scenes more than warm scenes. For example, I usually make it a little bit cooler. The next one is motion blur. When it is in the middle, you just can't understand it that much. But when I turn it off, when I rotate it, you can see we don't have any blurry frame between these two rotations. But it's not that real, because when you, in reality, when you do that with your camera, you will see blurred frames in between them, because the shutter of the camera is not that open for long. So when you just do this, you will see a blurry frames. But when you turn it off, it will be artificial and you don't see any motion blur right now. Let's bring it back. And then we have lens flare. Lens flare is more than when you have sun. For example, let's go to here and let's make it the sun, or make the time about the noon. And now let's go to here. It's a little bit hard to have lens flares, and let's put the lens flare on a higher number. You can see some flares in here. This is the lens flare. You will see it in some scenes, but you may, and now you can see it much better in here. But if you don't want that, you can turn off the lens flare. It depends on the mode that you want to achieve. Okay, let's bring that back to the next one is bloom. We can see bloom much better in artificial lights. For example, let's bring the scene to the night scene and watch the lights in here, and can understand the difference between having a high number of bloom or low number of bloom. For example, let's bring it to the 0. You can see we don't have any glue effect around the lights in here, but when you increase it, you can see we have more realistic effect around it, because we have a little bit of bloom when we are looking at lamps and some light sources. The next tool is not that useful. You can see you can change the corners to black, and the next one is really useless, so I'm not going to talk about it. And now let's talk about the next part, which is atmosphere, and we can see the change of the atmosphere more in the day in comparison with the night. Now it's time to check the atmosphere tab in here. The first one is fog. You can change the intensity of the fog, and also you can change the height of the fog really easily from here. But with this sky, we will not have fog, so we need to change the sky when we want to have fog, because with this sky there's not going to be any fog. So let's restart these two settings, and the first one is sound brightness. If you want to have better lighting, I really encourage you to bring the sound brightness on something like maybe 2 or even 0, and then do the lighting manually. I will talk about some projects that you can watch after this video to know to learn more about lighting too. Okay, as you can see, when you bring the sound brightness a low number, you can see a huge difference in your scene. The next one is night sky brightness. You can see this effect in the night. I'm not going to make this in night right now. Also, the next one is shadow sharpness. When you are looking at your shadows, it is you can change the sharpness of these shadows. Look at this in here. You can increase it or decrease the shadow sharpness. When I increase it, you can see we have sharp shadows. Personally or generally, if you want to have a realistic shadows and realistic scenes, you have to try to have the smoothest shadows that you can get. For example, let's bring that to here, and you can see it is much more realistic in comparison with the sharp shadows. You can see the difference between these two. It will be much more realistic in some areas in here instead of something like that. It is really artificial. Okay, that's great. And the next one is artificial light brightness. Let's go to here, and we have some artificial lights. You can change the artificial light brightness easily from here, and it will change all of the artificial light brightness in your project, but with some ratio together. It's not going to make all of them same, but it will increase the brightness or decrease the brightness totally for all of them. And then we have ambient brightness. You are not going to see the big difference in here because we have enough lights in here, but you can see a little bit brightness in here when you are changing ambient brightness. But personally, I'm not going to change that a lot. And then we have wind, but where you're going to see the wind effect on your, you can see them on your vegetation and on your grass, for example, and also on your trees. Let's bring the wind on a really high number. When you're moving, we can see the trees moving. And also, if when you stop, you can see it will stop the wind effect because it's fun to reduce the resource usage. But if you want to see the light, if you want to see the wind effect even when you are still, you need to go to the general setting, but not here. You need to go to the general setting of your software UI, and then in here we have a rest mode. You need to turn it off, and then you can see the wind effect. Even if you are in a still mode, you can see the wind effect in here. It depends on you. Also, you can change the directional angle of your wind to have the effect that you are looking for. Let's bring it back, and that's the part for atmosphere. The next step is the sky. You can change the first option that you have is white background. It will remove the sky and it will give you a white background. It's not that useful, but maybe you would find a use case for that. And then you can change the horizon, or you can change the HDR file in here. We have some pre-built HDR in here: desert, we have forest, we have construction site, and some other parts, but these are not that great HDRIs. So you can use your own HDRI. For example, you go to the Skybox. Now we have the option to use our HDR. But before that, let's put it on maybe white cubes, and let's put on white cube, and let's explore these options, and then we will return and we will do the works with HDRI too, because these options are only for Enscape pre-default HDRIs. Let's bring the camera up. Let's change the mode by a space to fly, and let's bring the camera by E to the upper side. And now we can change the density of clouds in here. This is really self-explanatory. And we can change the variety of the clouds. Let's bring that to a low number. We can change the variety. Also, we can change the cirrus amount, and we can add contrails. And also, we can change the longitude and latitude of your sky. It will change the positioning of your sky. And that's for that part. And also for the horizon part, you can rotate the horizon with this option in here. Or you can change the moon size, but we don't have any moon right now because we need to go to the night mode. But personally, I don't use the pre-default options for this part. I use HDRIs. It is much better and it will give you more realistic effects. But what is it? What is a HDR file? HDR file is a kind of thing that we use in our project to do the lighting for us, and we change it for sky. You can download some free HDRs from the resource page of Enscape, or you can go to the Polyhaven, and in here click on, let's go to the main site of the main page of the Polyhaven, and in here click on HDRIs, and you can download different HDRIs for yourself. There are lots of HDRs, but I have some of them right now, so I will use them because I have downloaded them earlier. Let's put it on Skybox. And now in here you can change the Skybox file to the file that you want. You can see I have some HDR files in here. I can change them, just select them and click on open and wait a little bit. You will have a completely different horizon right now. You can select another one, a simpler one maybe. It will suit my scene better. I like this one better. Now you can see the lighting is completely different in comparison with the first part that we had. Let's create a preset to see that, because I want to keep these settings and I want to create another set of settings for myself. So you need to create a preset for yourself. Let's create a preset in here and let's name it 1. And now let's rotate between these two, you can see the huge difference between them. So knowing the right visual setting for each mode will make you a better Enscape user in comparison with other people that doesn't understand the visual setting in a better way. We have the output tab left, but I will talk about this output settings when we are creating our renders and our animation. Now we know the basics of Enscape. We are ready to use some other features of Enscape. The first feature is Enscape materials, and the next feature we want to talk is assets, our custom assets that we have in Enscape. But for the materials, if you don't know anything about the Revit material basics, firstly you need to watch another video for Revit material basic. I have another video on my channel. I will put the link in the description. Go watch that and return here if you don't know anything about Revit materials. In Enscape, we have some items for our Revit, for our materials. We have the Enscape material library, and also we have Enscape material editor. For example, let's make the Enscape a little bit smaller, and let's place it in here. Now let's edit the material of this part with the Enscape material editor. First of all, let's see what's the material name that we have in here. This is the material name, pavement 11. And now let's go to the Enscape, and let's go to the Enscape material editor, and let's find that material in here. We have the pavement 11. For example, we have some albedo maps, we have height map, and also we have reflection map. We will talk about them later, but right now, for example, let's change the density of the normal map in here. Let's put on 0. Or let's change the brightness, for example. You can see we've changed the material in here. We can change, you can do any difference that you want. For example, we can do some rotations to it. And that's the settings that you have. So we will return to the Enscape material editor, but if you want to replace this material with some predefined materials for your in your Enscape material library, which you can find in here, let's go to the Enscape. And in here we have Enscape material library. And you can see we have lots of materials in here, and you can even download more materials on ECAZ website. You can download more free materials in here. For your Enscape materials, we have some great PBR materials in here too. You can download them. You just need to click and you can bring them in your Enscape material library. For example, let's go to the tiles and let's import this tile 5. Just select it and click on import selection, or you can select some of them. Let's import all of the tiles, click on import selection. And now when you go to the Enscape and when you go to the Enscape material editor, you will see the Enscape material editor. You will see the tiles at the end. You can see the materials in here. But if you want to assign it to this folder, you need to go to the Revit and select the element, go to the element, edit type, and do all of those things. But how we can do it faster? To do it faster, go to the Enscape material editor and select the material of this pavement in here. Let's search for 11 and right click on in here, and you can see we have an option in here which is saying replace with Enscape material. This is the one that you're looking for. And let's go to the tile, and when I select one of them, you can see it will replace it with my material, and you can see the material in real time. Really much easier in comparison with the first way. Now if you're satisfied with the result, you can click on replace, and it will replace this material with the material you've selected before. And let's go to the editor in here, and let's make it, for example, bigger. To make the material bigger, you need to go to the texture, and in here let's put it on maybe 2 by 2, and it will make it bigger. And also you can change the options for height map, reflection, and all of those parts. For example, let's put the reflection on something manual, and let's bring the roughness to a lower number, and it will be it will have more reflection for you. You can see the reflection in here, and also you can change the specular of it. to see the reflections in here. Make sure to watch the Enscape material editor. In there we will create 5 different materials in Enscape, but make sure to watch it after this video. The next feature that I want to talk about is synchronized views. For example, you have a good Revit view, or you are more familiar with Revit views and you want to sync these two views together. To do that, just click on synchronize views in here, and then it will your Enscape will synchronize its view with the Revit view. For example, when I'm changing this, it will change in Enscape. It is really helpful, especially in orthographic views, because it is really hard to set orthographic views in Enscape. And even you can change it to perspective, and you can do all of the things in Revit and it will be synced. But it is a little bit a heavy feature, especially in perspective. So personally, I will set my perspective views in Enscape and I will set my orthographic views in Revit. So far, maybe you've asked yourself how we can have this kind of high quality asset like this car or this vegetation in our Revit or ArchiCAD or our Vectorworks projects, because these are some Enscape assets, not Revit or other program objects. And Enscape will create some proxies from them and will give you realistic geometry in itself. But you can see we have lots of great assets in Enscape, but when we go in Revit, we just see some proxies because Revit can't handle this kind of heavy geometry. So Enscape will proxy them in the Revit environment and it will show the right geometry in Enscape, and we can place them really easily. We can place them in Enscape environment, and also we can place them in Revit or in your modeling software too. You just need to click on asset library in here, or you need to click on asset library in here, and then you will have all of the categories in here. And then, for example, let's go and select animal, and then we can place an animal in here. For example, let's go in here and let's place a dog in here, and then place it. Then you can select it, and also you can rotate it from here. You can move it and rotate it from here. Let's rotate this, something like this. And then it is a proxy. When you click on apply change, it will turn it to the realistic model. When you zoom in, you can understand the difference between Revit families and Enscape families in rendering aspect of them. You can look around these assets, and also you can create your own assets for yourself according to the 3ds Max files too. And make sure go to the EC Asset website and get 10 free assets, and also you can find much more Enscape assets there. But we have some other features in Enscape asset part 2. We can select them and then we can scale them from here. We can scale them to a huge dog, for example, something like this. But make sure to check the quality, because when you make them bigger, the quality is not that great because everything is much bigger, and this model is designed for that scale. And also you can scatter around. For example, if you have a big area in here and you want to populate some people in it or anything else, you can do it very easily with just using a scattering. Let's go to the multiple asset and also a scattering. You can select some assets. For example, we have these leaves in here. Let's scatter them. Let's select all of these, and then you have different kind of placement. You have rectangle, you have radial, and also you have a surface. Let's use rectangle in here, for example, from here to here. Also, you can change the width of the rectangle from here. For example, let's make it much bigger. Also, you can change the density from here, and it will make much more assets there, something like that. Let me bring the density to the highest number. And for the distribution, you can change it from jitter to random, and also to uniform. Let's click on confirm, and also let's click on apply change to see the result. It will work with vegetation much better in comparison with placing people and something like that, because you can't change the orientation of them and you need to rotate peoples manually to have a realistic effect. Also, you can see it is great mode for this, and also you can select the surface too.
And also you can watch another video I have. I will put the link in the description. In there I will explore all of the features that scattering tools will give us in our projects. If you are familiar with BCF and build collaboration format, you can do that in Enscape too. For example, you can go somewhere and you can click on this collaborative annotation and you can create an issue in here. I can title it whatever you want and can give it some description, and also it will create an image from this side. And after the image is created, then you can create your issues. Let's create it, and then in here you can do some different things. For example, in here you can export to BCF, and also you can import BCF, and you can do so much things with this issue and collaborative annotation between Enscape and BCF formats. If you are using Enscape in Revit or ArchiCAD, BIM data are really important in your workflow, and you can see them, and also you can use this information to find those models much faster in your program. But how you can see those information? You just need to click on BIM mode, and when you do that, when you select some elements from the modeling software, you will see all of the informations in here, and it will be a great place to see the information around the model that we've selected.
We work with the Enscape assets in Enscape Viewport, but we have the same thing in our modeling software environment too. It depends on you, but personally I use the Enscape environment for some decorative and smaller assets, and I use modeling environment placement assets for bigger or main assets that we want to place on our projects.
And also, if you want to bring your site context into your program with Enscape, you can do that with Enscape, and it has this feature. You can watch that video after this video. I will explain all of the tools there. I will put the link in the description. The next feature that we want to cover in here is our video editor, which will allow you to create walkthroughs and animations. To do that, just click on this video editor in here, and then you will have this video editor in here. Each video, each animation contains different keyframes, and you need to create them. To create a keyframe, you need to click here or here. For example, let's click in here and let's select our first keyframe in here, and let's move it, and let's go, for example, maybe in here, and let's create another keyframe, and then the total duration is 80 seconds right now. And when you just click play, you will see animation in here, but it is too slow. Let's give a lower number to it, for example, maybe 8 seconds, and then click on play. You can see it is much faster right now. Or even you can do some keyframes. For example, you can change the day of the night in between keyframes. You can create some dolly effects and those kind of things that I will cover all of them in another my video, which is animation in Enscape. You can watch the video after this, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to create a simple animation. For example, something like that, something like this, and you can create some another keyframes in the middle of them. For example, let's go in here, let's create another keyframe between these two, and now we have 3 keyframes, and you can see a video pass in here, the first one, the second one, and the third one. And also with hovering over on the pass, you can create another keyframes between these, and with double clicking in each keyframe, you can go there and you can update the keyframe. For example, let's go in here and update this keyframe, and let's exit. And now we just updated this keyframe in here. And as I said, we have lots of features, but we will cover it in that video that I will put the link in the description. After you've created your views and your animation, you need to export them. But before that, let's go to some views that we've created. If you want to create some new views, you can just go to the view management and adjust the view that you want. Just click on create view, and it will create some views for you. For example, let's go to the views that we have in this model. Now, for example, let's create a render from this view. How we can do that? We have a screenshot in here, but before that, let's go to the visual setting and let's put the rendering quality on the ultra, or we can, let's create a exterior render instead of interior render, or let's adjust it and let's create a render from here. But before that, make sure to check the save frame here to understand the exact resolution that you are creating instead of your screen resolution. And now we are good to go, but before that, let's go to the output, and in here you can specify the resolution of your image. For example, we can put it on custom and we can create a 1:1 ratio image really easily. For example, if you want to put it on your Instagram or anywhere, let's put it on full HD, and let's go to the screenshot in here and assign a place, and in a second you will have this great one in here. And also you can create your you can export your animations in that way too. Just go to the video editor this time, and in here click on export, and it will export the paths that you have, and you can specify the files. For example, let's export the animation that we've created for the exterior part. For the sake of this video, I will put it on a really low quality, for example maybe HD, and with 30 FPS or frame per second. Now you can see the results. It is really great in here, and all of these that we've talked about just was an overall overview on all of the tools that we have. But after this, make sure to watch all of the videos that I will put in the description, and make sure to watch them in order that I will put them in the description. I will see you on the next session.